and welcome back to your C# programming course. In this lesson, we'll be creating a project in Visual Studio and writing our first line of C# code. Now, first things we need to do is create a new project by simply clicking here. This will take us to a window where we can set which framework we want to use, as well as which language. Now this is a beginner course, so we don't need to use anything major that you might be seeing here. What we're going to do in this video is create what is known as a console application in Visual Studio, which allows us to enter in some basic code and receive a basic output for that code through a console window. Now to find this framework easily, you can search it here at the top or simply put in C# in the languages and go to project type and select console. You'll see .NET Core and .NET Framework. Once you've done that, simply click next. Here we're going to now give a name to our project. I'm going to call it something basic, first program, like so, and click create. Once that is done, you should see the following. Now this may seem a bit overwhelming at first, but I will be going through what all this means in a moment. First, I'm going to be customizing Visual Studio for making it easier for us to look at. Right now the blank white screen can be pretty harsh on the eyes. So, to customize it, I'll go to Tools, Options. I click on Environment here, and I change the color theme from blue to dark, like so. As you can see, this changes everything to a dark background to make it a bit more easy to look at, as well as for you to watch. In addition to that, I'm going to make the code a bit easier to read as well by zooming in, by simply holding down Control and scrolling up on the mouse wheel until it's big enough to see. With that done, let's go through what's on the screen now. In this beginner course, there's only two things that really concern us. First and most obvious is the code window that you see here. It is this code window that we can place our code. As you can see, some default code is already put in, and I'll go through it as well. The second thing is our projects manager over here in the Solution Explorer. This organizes our projects as well as every bit of file attached to it. So as you can see, our program is attached to it, as well as its various properties and references, all already set for us through the Visual Studio defaults. Now, we don't need to go into depth with these. This is a beginner course. What we really need to do right now is learn our first line of code. But before we can do that, we got to understand where we need to write our code first of all. So let us go back to our coding window here and go through what you see here. First, you'll notice a block of code at the top here. Below this block of code, we have these three lines and sets of brackets. Now, think of an application as a collection of classes. These classes work together to create a working program with their array of methods at their disposal. So, namespace first program is our project's main program. Within it is a class or many classes, in this case just one, called program. And within this program is a method, the main method, which is the method that is executed upon running the class, that you can see here. And it is within this set of curled brackets below the main method that we'll be writing our code. So that way when we run our application, what it does is it calls our namespace program. It then calls its class, and that class in turn calls its main method and runs the code within. Now, a class can contain several methods, much like a method can contain several lines of code. And if we go broader than that, a namespace first program over here can contain many classes, all of which can work hand in hand. I can go more in depth with what this is and what it means as a programmer, but that is something that is more suitable for an advanced course. For now, we are beginners and we simply want to write our first line of code, and we'll be placing it right here between these two curled brackets in the main method. Now, the first line of code that any programmer learns is an output line of code. A simple line of code that simply outputs a line of text. Now, there are many different languages out there that have their own unique code for outputting a line of text. So let's learn C Sharp's one. Simply type in console, capital C. Take note of the case when writing code, as it is important. Now, what this does is simply call the console class, and what we then do next is put a dot, and we type in a method that works with that console class. The one we're going to be calling is writeLine, like so. Notice capital W, capital L, a set of normal brackets, otherwise known as parentheses, and a semicolon to close off that line of code. Most lines of code you'll find end with a semicolon. Now what this does is output nothing at the moment. What we need to do is add text between the parentheses over here by simply adding a double quotation mark, a line of text such as hello world. Now that we've written our first line of code, we need to build and run our program. In order to do that, we make use of a shortcut by simply holding down Control and pressing F5. What this will do is build and run the program. As you can see here, it opens up the console window, and in that console window we have our first line of text, and it simply says hello world, and press any key to continue. If you press any key, it will close the program and it will end. A very simple line of code, but you'll find it is one of the most useful lines of code, as output is what we want to receive from any software that we use. We give our input, and in turn the program performs some sort of service and shows us an output. And there you have it. With this first line of code, you're now ready to learn more lines of code that can work together to create full functioning programs. However, before we do that, we need to learn about data types and variables, and we'll be learning about that in the next lesson. See you then. Bye for now.